Good morning again, everyone. In this panel, we're going to be looking at some of the structural and systemic levers that can unlock the immense potential within India's ECCE and FLN ecosystems. We'll be looking at the potential to optimize frontline workforce capacity, how we can strengthen policy implementation frameworks, exploring collaborative models, governance mechanisms, and emerging technological interventions, looking at how we can together identify actionable pathways that can drive scalable, high-quality learning and outcomes across diverse contexts. I'm really delighted to have such esteemed panelists joining me for the discussion today, who are all very much at the forefront of spearheading systemic transformation of education systems in the most rural and low-resource communities in India through capacity building, system strengthening, technical innovations, and strategic partnerships. It's really an honor to have you all with us today, and we look forward to an engaging discussion. I'd like to begin with you, Kailash Ji. As we know, Maharashtra has placed a strong emphasis on the first 1,000 days of children's lives. Could you share with us a little bit more on how the state is translating this policy into action and how this is influencing families as well as frontline workers?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Reliance Foundation organizers. First of all, I would like to congratulate Reliance Foundation for having such workshop on this early childhood care and education and foundational learning. As you have coming to your question, why we are focusing on first 1,000 days. In ICDS, we provide 6 basic services to pregnant women, lactating mothers, and children below 6 years of age. And in Maharashtra, we have around 110,624 Anganwadis, catering to about 62 lakh beneficiaries, of which 28 lakh beneficiaries of these 3 to 6 years of age. And again, 30 lakh children are from 6 months to 6 years of age. As we all know that malnutrition has a greater impact on the early developmental things of the child. And this window of 1,000 days comes once in life of every child. And as this malnutrition impacts not only on the physical growth of the child, but also the mental development and his learning abilities. So in Maharashtra, we thought of this and we started this initiative in Maharashtra. This is a very simple initiative wherein we track the key stages of this mother and child, starting from pregnancy, because this 1,000 days comprises of detection of pregnancy to the second birthday of the child. So we track stages from detection of pregnancy. At this stage, we ask them to have their hemoglobin test, and accordingly, we can advise them IFA tablet if hemoglobin is lower than 8. Then going further, we track, after this pregnancy detection, we track their vaccination, 4 ANC checkup by that mother, pregnant mother. Then we go for their institutional deliveries, then early initiation of breastfeeding, and then complementary breastfeeding after 7 months up to the second birthday. Simply taking these actions on this for 4-5 steps, we are getting very good results. So we started this as a pilot in Mumbai, as Suposhit Mumbai Abhiyan. And this, before doing this Abhiyan in Mumbai, we have launched this guidelines for this Suposhit Mumbai Abhiyan under 1,000 days. In the name of this booklet I have with me, बाळाचे पहिले स्वर्णमय 1000 दिवस. And this was launched by Honorable Governor of Maharashtra, Honorable CM of Maharashtra, Honorable Minister WCD, and our Minister of State, and then Secretary WCD, showing their commitment towards this very subject of right from Anganwadi to the top of the hierarchy in administration. And after successful implementation of pilot in Mumbai, we thought, why not to take it to across Maharashtra? Then we started training to our Anganwadis. then CDPOs, supervisors, and our DPOs. And after this training, now we are ready for scaling it up across Maharashtra. Through this, we want that every child coming in the as a newborn in state, it should be healthy, nourished, and have full capacity to learn in his lifetime. So accordingly, we have focusing on this 1,000 days, and I think whichever partners we are working with us, maybe it is MCGM, then health department, then our NGOs working in Mumbai and in Maharashtra, they are all partnering for this initiative, and I think we are getting very good support for this. And we actually don't see this as a program, but it is a promise of state of Maharashtra to every child that they can have their life to grow with its full strength. That is all about this program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kailash ji. I mean, I think that's just such fundamental, important work that's being done, which is not only going to support the child and their family for those first 1,000 days of life, but really lay that foundation for their future health, their future well-being, and incredible work to take these policies, these priorities, but actually translate them into action at such great scale across the state. So thank you for sharing those insights with us. I'll now turn to Dr. Jhingran. Over the past decade, we've seen increasing collaborations between strategic funders, NGOs, governments in the design and delivery of programs aimed at improving student learning. And your work through LLF and your broader work that you have been doing over the many years, you have had a real forefront role in this. In your view, how can some of these collaborations be strengthened to become even more results-orientated? And what avenues of collaboration do you find to be most promising and hopeful?
Thank you, Vanita. So over the last decade, we have worked, other organizations have worked with state governments, and I would say that governments have been more willing and open to associate with civil society organizations. Maharashtra, for example, there's Quest and many others working in early childhood as well. If I was to extract what are good ways of working, what seems to have worked with the government system, I have a few set of, let's say, good practices. The first, I would say, when there is a common agreed vision between the government and the non-profit, which can then also be enshrined in an MOU, let's say, where at least the basic principles are agreed. In the states that we work, the government is investing all the resources. So it's the government's own program. It's co-created with them. It's owned by the government. So it's not an NGO program. That's very important, that we don't talk about it as an NGO program. The one precondition we have seen that works or is required in every location, every context, is investing in strengthening of the capacity of the system. So that one should not go into a project mode and just implement some programs, but how do we parallelly work on investing in the capacity of the system? And for us, it has been not just teachers, but also those teacher mentors who provide academic support, middle-level educational administrators. So how do you ensure that they are stronger than before? And for us, at least, it's been very useful for us to have a set of non-negotiables, that when we do this work, obviously when you work with a large scale with the government, there will be things that will not be as you had planned, and a non-profit may think, oh, this is getting diluted. Those things you've got to definitely factor when we work with the system at scale, but there should be some non-negotiables about what is appropriate and what shouldn't be appropriate, what is not great. And the focus of the work of any nonprofit with the government should be on learning and mainstreaming to the entire system. So that's what I want to say in terms of good practices that have worked. Trust and relationships are absolutely crucial in working with the government. I've been on the other side in the government for 25 years and then outside. It's very important that, and to build relationships, build trust, it is hard work at all levels. To the government system feeling that this is to help the government succeed, not to do your own thing. That's very important. I'll end by saying a few things to avoid also from the non-profits perspective. One is we should not substitute the work that the government is doing. Very often we start thinking that we'll do it more efficiently, let's do that. But we have to make the government stronger than when our intervention began, rather than weaken it by taking up tasks that the government was already doing. So that's very important. And from our side, we feel that we should not have a cookie-cutter approach. We've got a program design and it's going to work everywhere. Context is really very crucial. And important not to promise quick and unattainable results. Government sometimes, they're like, let's do this in 6 months, because the commissioner and the secretary would want to show results in 2 years. So it's very important. So I think there's great potential in these partnerships if we can have great frameworks, a clear roadmap, and mutual trust.
Thank you, Dr. Dhir. And I think your very insightful experience of being both sides of the table to understand what's really important in shaping those collaborations and partnerships. Maybe if you wouldn't mind if I could probe you a little extra, in terms of where do you see the role of partnerships also with philanthropic partners? You're one of our philanthropic partners at Reliance Foundation through what we're doing with Lifted. But we'd love to know what you think could be done, to strengthen those types of partnerships as well.
I think partnerships, when working on system change and system focus, have to be a longer duration partnership. One, of course, the nonprofit should be committed for a 7 to 10 years time frame and not just do a few years and come away. And I think not many philanthropic organizations in India today are making that kind of investment which looks at system strengthening, system change, and not just projects that can be completed in a year or 2 years' time. So I think that is very important from the funders and philanthropic side. But I have a view on this that nonprofits, funders, and governments need to get together. Often what happens is between a philanthropic organization and the NGO, we have an agreement, there are some outcomes listed, they're not known to the government. There's more transparency needed. I mean, we may not reach the stage of all three of them co-signing an agreement because the government finds it difficult to do that. But at least what are the outcomes that are included in that arrangement, and the funder and the government and the nonprofit sharing what are the long-term outcomes, that is a good beginning, I think.
No, thank you, Dhir, for those very valuable insights on strengthening partnerships and making them more impactful. And I completely agree. I mean, I think it's about all the different parts of the ecosystem, understanding each other's strengths and seeing where we can work together to support. Thank you. I'm now going to move to Dr. Swati. You've long advocated for developmentally appropriate play-based learning. From your experience, what are some of the critical principles that policymakers, schools need to follow to support young people's holistic development?
So thank you for asking such a pertinent question, because we talk about two very oft-used terms. One is called school readiness, and the other is developmentally appropriate practice. Now, if we were to go on Wikipedia and find out the meaning of the word school, it's a Greek word which stands for leisure. So actually, you're preparing children for what? You know, we have this concept that school, rigor, academics. But let's go back to the foundation, and it means leisure. So which means we are actually readying them for a place of leisure. When we talk about developmentally appropriate practice, I would like to say policymakers, schools, everybody need to understand development. It happens cephalocaudal proximodistal, which means the human baby is born with a larger head. Why? Because the brain grows first. And the human baby is the only species which walks after a year, because it's cephalocaudal proximodistal. And that says a lot about what we as educators need to keep in mind. It says proximodistal, which means the last to develop are the fingers. So when we talk about developmentally appropriate practice, it's not just jargon that we are talking about. We need to make teachers understand, parents understand what this actually means. Now what's happened is, we become fragmented with a lot of words that we use these days. We say neuroscience, we say Finland, we say Reggio, we say IB, we say play-based, and we forget the larger picture. So when you're taking a photograph and you lose focus, what do? You pull out. So let's pull out from this elephant and go back to where it all started. And you'll get 3 words: kindergarten, Casa Bambini, and Balwadi. So kindergarten is where everything started, Frobel. And what did it involve? Gifts and occupations. You then have Casa Bambini, children's home. Children's garden, children's home, Balwadi, children's courtyard. And what is Balwadi? We had Muchali Ma, Gijubai Badeka. What did he stand for? Varta and Ramakada. I want all our global visitors to go back with 2 words from India, Varta and Ramakada, which means stories and toys. Now let's understand what you said. How are we preparing children for school? And go back to that elephant that we were focused on. What is Reggio? Reggio is nothing but 100 languages of children, so which means emotional intelligence. What is IB? IB is nothing but inquiry, which means your wonder. You're bringing wonder in the lives of children. What is play-based? What is brain-based? All this is connected to the brain. And if you notice, let's come back to the NEP 2020. It starts first with a sentence that 85% of the cumulative brain development happens in the first 6 years. And if somebody were to ask you which are the 3 keywords in our NEP, it's wonder, choice, and joy. And we just saw with all this, it's all there. It's just that we've become very, very fragmented, and we've not giving educators the right picture and the connections to all these pictures. So when somebody asks me school readiness, developmentally appropriate practice, I said, who needs to be ready for school? It's the parents and the teachers. Are we preparing them? Because they should stop being parents and teachers. The minute a child is born, they need to become brain builders. And that's what we need to prepare them for. Because everything that we talk about today with all these big words, emotional intelligence or whatever we are talking about, it all starts and stops in the brain. And we're not teaching the main 2 stakeholders, the teacher and the parent, about the brain. So I think what our policy does, because I see a lot of people grumbling about the policy, that, how is it going to be implemented? A policy is a treasure map. You have to use your own brains to find your way to the treasure. So I think this is what is required when we talk about policy, practice, children going to school, parents, developmentally appropriate practice.
Thank you, Dr. Swati. I think you summed it up beautifully, and the focus ultimately being about wonder, choice, and joy. And I love the sentiment and focus of really rethinking of educators as being the brain builders of the future. So I think that cues very nicely to my next question, which is back to Kailash ji, which is creating a professional cadre of early childhood educators is the key focus of NEP 2020. How is the department approaching this, both in terms of attracting new entrants and strengthening the capacity, career pathways, and motivations of the existing workforce? And maybe, as Dr. Swati is saying, building brain builders.
That's what we are not taking care of.
Thank you, sir. That's what we are for.
Thank you, Vanita. Actually, for me, this NEP is the most significant document when it comes to the foundational stage of learning, because it talks about foundational stage of learning from 3 to 8 years of age, and of which ICDS caters for this 3 to 6 years of age. So major role of ICDS is during this period, and for that, actually in Maharashtra was always a pioneer for taking this early childhood care and education forward, and this foundational learning also. After coming this, after launching of this NEP 2020, we started to have this foundational curriculum that Ministry of Women and Child Development developed Government of India, that is Adhar Shila. We have contextualized it. Yes, we have contextualized to our state with the support of our Maharashtra State SCRT, and we have given it name as Maitri Bal Manashi. And accordingly, we are teaching our teachers, Anganwadi workers, or supervisors, CDPOs and DPOs, this Maitri Bal Manashi. We have one more program for educating our teachers. There is Poshan Bhi Padhai Bhi. This is again Government of India's initiative. In this program, we have given training to almost all our Anganwadi workers, supervisors and CDPOs. They are trained on this Maitri Bal Manashi. They were very good training for 3 days at every taluka level. All Anganwadi workers and supervisors and CDPOs attending that program. After that training, we are starting this actual curriculum in our Anganwadi. This actually they have given 46 weeks curriculum for each day what Anganwadi try to teach in the school. It is play-based learning, and they have given various activities, various toys, how to use, and local toys they have included in that, and they are using it in the Anganwadis right now. Because in Maharashtra we have before NEP also we have started our own curriculum as Akar, wherein we have taken this every aspect of child's development into account. And actually while this Adhar Shila was being done, and even in NEP they have taken the reference of this Akar. Again, one more program we have done in Maharashtra was Arambh, wherein this, if you know that Nav Chetana is one of the new framework that Ministry of Women and Child Development come up with, wherein they have taken our 1000 days concept, starting from pregnancy to, actually they have taken it up to 36 months. What type of caregiving should be done during this period, what nutrition should be given, what health care should be given to the child and mother, so that that child will be get every health and nutritional facility, so that his body and brain develops simultaneously. As we all say, about 80% of brain development happens during this 1000 days. So accordingly, we are started this Adhar Shila contextualized in Maharashtra, and we have many more partners to impart this preschool education in Anganwadis. Like we are doing something with the Reliance Foundation in our Thane district. We have turned about 625 Anganwadis into the learning centers, wherein that children get experience to work on the toys, and they can very joyfully learn from that. It's a very good learning center in Thane district. Again, we are planning to have such centers across the state in our 6 divisions, that is divisional headquarters. Like in Mumbai, we want to have it on Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, Pune, Nashik, Nagpur, Amravati. That we have already identified places for this, where we have already requested Reliance Foundation to support for that program. Again, we are working with Pratham Education for this mothers group. Actually, this mothers group, we are forming mother group of children, those who are coming to our Anganwadis, so that they can learn from themselves how to raise a child. Because in peer group, we may have some educated mother, we may have illiterate mother, we have various kinds of mothers, so that they can learn from each other. So that kind of exercise we are doing. We are also supported by Rocket Learning, and then Reliance Foundation, Pratham, some organization like Palvi in Vidarbha region, they are also helping us in this preschool education. We are trying, actually, we will not say we have done very much, but we are trying to see that that child get every experience which is essential for him. He's at this age, and actually NAP is helping, guidelines are helping for us to do this. Thank you.
No, thank you, Kailash ji. Thank you for telling us about that really important fundamental work of building the capacity of our early childhood educators. And I think from the Reliance Foundation perspective, we really appreciate the work that we're doing together with you on that. Moving to Dr. Dhir again, what do you feel should be the priority areas for system strengthening when implementing large-scale learning improvement programs, especially within classroom teaching and learning? What do you think are some of the areas that require the most urgent attention? Kailash was talking about the work that's happening at the Anganwadi level. I know you work a lot on foundation literacy and numeracy, and that's an area we work on together. Would love to hear your thoughts, particularly related to FLN.
Thanks, Vanita. So we know that the National Curriculum Framework has identified 3 to 8 as a foundational stage, and the principles remain the same or should remain the same. In fact, it is in grades 1 and 2 that's the need is the highest to have some of these elements of holistic development of the child, all domains, the play method of learning, which is not there. The pressure for FLN is actually very strong. But since you asked me about classrooms, there was a recent survey that was done by several organizations, including one in Maharashtra, on teaching and learning practices. And what we find there is that teacher talk still dominates in the classroom. This is for grades 1 and 2. Children were quiet in about 50% classrooms, not appearing confident or not asking questions. There was an absence of positive nurturing relationships, which is absolutely crucial, not just for 3 to 6, but in early years of schooling as well. And the focus was not on inferential meaning making. It's very literal, closed questions, choral repetition, not really open-ended questions. Writing work was still mostly copying. The TLM, the teaching and learning materials, were mostly demonstration by the teachers and not used by children. And as both of you mentioned about the national education policy, creativity, discovery, joy, critical thinking, I mean, these elements are missing. So that's where I think there are gaps in the classroom. And to say what needs to be strengthened, I'll divide that into 2 parts. One is in terms of program design, let's say for FLN. The first is multi-grade teaching. All our schools, primary schools, are multi-grade. They have one teacher who's teaching grades 1 and 2, sometimes 1, 2, and 3 as well. So how do we equip teachers to be able to work across age groups and levels? The Anganwadi is a good example of how you work in a multi-level kind of situation with 3 to 6. Then there's a huge disparity in learning. The classrooms are also very differentiated, and different levels of learning in the classroom, and teachers are not equipped to address that. How do you support learners who are struggling to learn, who are far below grade level? That is something which needs to happen. And then, of course, in large parts of India, including some parts of Maharashtra, there is a need to begin with children's home languages and ensure that children, you work in a bilingual, multilingual manner so that children acquire slowly the language of the school, but we begin with their languages. And of course, as everyone said, their active engagement in the classroom. So those are prerequisites. In terms of what system strengthening is required, I think at the structural level, in early childhood education, of course, there's greater convergence between the departments that is required at all levels, WCD and the education department, right down to the institution itself. I have a strong concern about Bal Vatika. I don't know if you've heard. There's a Bal Vatika 3, which is 5 to 6, which is being brought into the classrooms in certain states, into primary schools, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Odisha. By one stroke of a government order, these children are now in school, primary school, without a dedicated teacher, without great training about how do you work with young children. So that's a big risk for us, and how can we do something about it? The pre-service and in-service, especially continuous professional development for young learners, I think that's a gap still. Pre-service, we've looked at into the DL-ed curriculum more for primary school teachers, and we find that there's nothing about young learners or diversity, so that's a big issue. Data collection, a lot of data collection happens in the government system. Fortunately, ECE is just starting. You've got that Poshan tracker. You're following the footsteps of the education department. The education department collects so much data. There are so many apps. In fact, it's difficult to track the number of trackers, So, and The problem with the data is the volume of it, the quality, because there's an expectation in the administration that things will improve. So slowly, the data is supposed to show improvements, right? So the system understands that. So that's the problem with the quality, that everything then reaches the highest levels. And then it's not used and fed back to teachers for their own improvement. There's no point in sending data upwards and not getting fed back. So a lot of these issues, and I mentioned the middle tier of the administration. So I think if we really want a transformation of what happens inside a classroom, we've got to address some of these structural issues in the government system.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Dhir, for your words on how the challenges, the opportunities, and the priorities for how we can do system strengthening at scale. Now, moving to Dr. Swati for our final question. The time for our panel has gone far too quickly. I think we could have carried on discussing for another half hour, but I'm sure my team will be buzzing me shortly. Dr. Swati, based on your research and your experience, you've been looking a lot at technology, and that's something that we're all also very much interested in, the potential for technology to support learning, but in a positive way. And I was just reading very recently one of the papers that you've done on this topic. We'd love you to share a little bit on what do you think some of the guidelines are that parents and early childhood educators should prioritize to ensure that technology supports rather than undermines healthy brain development and children's social intelligence.
I'm so happy you asked that, because right now the entire world is reeling under this question of banning or having. And I want you all to now, because we spoke today morning, Dr. Rebecca also spoke about reciprocal. So I'm going to sing a song and I want you to join me. If you're watching a screen, take a break. If you're watching a screen, take a break. Go outside and play. It's time to take a break. If you're watching a screen, take a break. Why don't we have these songs in early years? We have songs to do with the traffic signal. I've been to all schools, and all school curriculums around the world teach these children, toddlers, about red lights tells you to stop and the green light tells you to go. Which toddler drives? Which toddler crosses the road on their own? But we have to teach them these rhymes, but we don't teach them the rhymes that actually matter to them today. And that is about screens. If we from childhood were to teach children how to be healthy with screens, we wouldn't be thinking about banning. We would be then making it an intrinsic reinforcement, an intrinsic regulation, and not an extrinsic regulation which we want governments to bring about. Now, what I have developed, which she was talking about, which was given at the Education World Conference, and thank you to Education World for supporting it, it's called a cell phone contract, which is what the first time you give a cell phone to your child, even if the child is 2 years old, you have an agreement with the child. How are you going to use it? When are you going to use it? And how much are you going to use it? The free copies are available. You can always reach out to me. And this document we've made right up to teenage, which means when the child becomes a teenager, it will have more agreement points like social media, etc. Now, let's go back to the NEP, because I love the NEP. It has something called Panchadi, right? The Panchadi are the 5 steps of learning process in children. It's very similar to Bloom's taxonomy, okay? So that's another argument. You can sit with me, who came first, the Panchadi or the Blooms? But I love that, Indian knowledge systems. But what we've now developed is that a Panchadi-based digital policy. The Panchadi's first step is Aditi. Aditi means introduction. So if you are going to introduce something to a child for the first time, do not use a screen. So if you're introducing a song for the first time, a story for the first time, if you're dealing with a child's emotion, the child is scared of a doctor, don't give a screen to pacify the child. If the child is not eating, it's an emotion, don't give a screen to pacify the child. All these suicides that you are seeing around the world, of blue whale episodes and whatnot, it's because when the child is feeling the most emotional, we are connecting them to a screen and not a human. So screens are not for human connections. So Aditi stage, no screens at all. When you come to the Bodh stage, which is your conceptual understanding, so I'm going to keep a little bit of wonder and curiosity in you all. What is the 5 stages? But please do that. I was recently in Qatar because we have a school there. And I was talking to the parents there that it's very important that the stories that you tell children should be without mobile phones. And I know somebody is here from Qatar. Qatar has such a beautiful story called Hamda and the Magical Turtle. And it needs to be told to children. And we have so many lovely stories. I was talking to Mamta ji this morning. Bakor Patel is what we grew up with. And these are not on mobile phones. Parents should be telling these stories to children. These days I have heard that bedtime stories are also told by Alexa. Then the child is going to listen to an Alexa all life. Because you've told this child that machine voices are more important than human voices. So the one secret that any policymaker can bring in is that relationships first, before screens. And please don't ban screens. That's not the way out. Imagine when fire was invented if it was banned, because it can burn. We learned how to live with it, right? Fire can burn, knives can kill, but we have them around children all the time because we taught them how to live with it. So let's go back to Montessori and learn from that let's make the world a better place for children, childlike. Let's sing that song. What was that song? If you're watching a screen, take a break. If you're eating your food, keep the screen away. So these are the things that we need to teach children. So policy needs to be like that. It has to be thought through. We have everything in our policy. You know, I used to always be the one grumbling about Government of India not having a good early childhood policy, because when I compared the policy of 39 countries, I found EYFS, EYLF, and Tewariki the best. Today, if you were to ask me, I will say NCF 2022, definitely.
Thank you, Dr. Swati. I think that's a very positive note to end our discussion on. And I think thank you for sharing those principles with us. I think very fundamental for us to think about how we embed those skills in young children early on how to responsibly use technology. And also very useful for us to also think about, because that was not there in our early childhood education too. So maybe you need to expand it post-18 too. Thank you very much to all of our panelists for a very engaging discussion on some of the key issues and considerations that we need to think about when creating equitable, high-quality learning ecosystems for every child. Please join me, everyone, in a round of applause for our panelists. Now, before I let our panelists leave, we also want to launch a publication called Pedagogies of Play, Innovations in Early Childhood Education. This brings together 10 essays and articles sharing research, practice, and lived experience from across India's early learning ecosystem. Many of the contributions came from some of the experts that were with us from the last Building Flourishing Futures conference, and we hope that you will all enjoy reading it in your bags. You do have a postcard which has a QR code where you can download the publication, and this is just one other way that we're trying to help share insights and conversations, and will lead us nicely into our next panel, which is going to focus a little bit more on play-based and joyful learning. So I'd also like to invite Mr. Basu, Ms. Vanita Sen, and Mr. Kaushik to join us on stage for the launch of the publication.